butterfly people, welcome to my next video. Today I would like to talk to you a little bit about managing your expectations about possibly changing to natural medicines. And it's been a long journey for me as well, I must say, and a lot of trial and error and experimentation. And when I first decided to change, well, when my mom first decided to change, I probably was not the best patient out because it was something new and I knew what else I had tried and it had not worked. In fact, a lot of it had made it worse. So it was quite an exciting journey for me in the beginning. And there was a lot of expectations that I had that this was now going to be, dare I say, my cure. I mean, I was 14 and a half, and as a teenager, that's all you want. You still want that, but it was rather unrealistic to expect that to be an absolute cure. And over time, I must say, I'm so glad that I actually stuck with it, still with it today, very happily, and it made the biggest difference ever. So I just want to let you know that there's this perception, and I find this with most people. There's this perception that natural medicines take so long to work. Well, in the beginning, that there is some truth to that, and I just want to explain to you why that may be the case. Because when I first started, the lady that I went to, initially they wanted me to change my diet, drink a lot of water, and I hated water. I really didn't like drinking water, and especially all the dietary changes, because if they ideally would have wanted me to go onto a raw food diet or completely vegetarian, and I was not up for that at that particular time. So I was a bit of a challenge for them, not only because they hadn't seen something like this before, but also because of my expectations that this needed to be now my cure. There was a thing that sort of built up where they would try me on a new medication and I would have to go back and give feedback as to what changes I had seen, improvements that had taken place. And at that stage, unless the sores and the blisters and everything were literally disappearing before my very eyes, it wasn't working, in my perception. Thankfully, I had the wisdom of my mom, yet again. And she was able to have a little bit of more perspective and wisdom, where she could see little changes that were taking place in me that at that stage for me wasn't good enough. But slowly but surely, sticking with it made all the difference. And the reason it was slow in the beginning, and how they explained it to me, was she said to me that it depends on the type of connective tissue that you have. Now, we do have different connective tissues in different parts of our bodies, both loose and dense connective tissue. But I mean, EB being a connective tissue disorder, the thing is, she explained that it's like trying to pour water into a woven basket. The looser your connective tissue is, whatever medications you're taking is just flowing straight through and the body's not been able to utilize it as well. And with our ability or inability to absorb nutrients, that just made perfect sense to me. So initially, yes, it did. It took longer. And the other thing is it also depends on the level of health of the body at that particular time, because you must understand it is a holistic problem. The thing is that the very first thing they did was to treat me for the infections, because I went from antibiotic after antibiotic after antibiotic not working to nothing. And yeah, it's been 27 years now, and 4 antibiotics in 27 years. From just changing, just like that. So that was understandably their main priority, was to look at treating that. And a lot of the time is you can't just look at the infection alone. Things like inflammation come up in the body. You have to look at it as a whole system, and the systems work together. So in that, you've got to understand constipation often been a problem with EB, and it certainly was for me, and I say was for a very good reason. But it's you're trying to treat the infection that is now coming out in the skin, but there is a ton of inflammation in the body. The bowels are not eliminating as they should. The liver's not functioning as it should because it's been damaged. And from that, you get a recipe for disaster, because you cannot control infection correctly if you're not also looking at reducing the inflammation, getting the bowels to work properly. Because I was chronic, had chronic constipation, and I will talk about all of these things later in more depth. But it's those toxins which are sitting there and reinfecting the system. So you can imagine it's a very much a whole system issue, which is why they tried to treat me for as many different things as they could in the beginning. The other nice thing about this is I was so lucky, so blessed actually, to have the lady that I did, because not only did she treat me for free, she also wanted me to learn. She wanted me to take an active role in my healing process. And she did this by teaching me about the various remedies that whatever it was that I was taking at the time. She wanted me to learn. And that brings in an important aspect to it, because it makes you actively involved, and it gives you that little bit more independence. And that's important, because with EB, as I'm sure many of you all know, there is a lack of independence. So whenever you can get an independent, because there's nothing wrong with our minds are perfect, and learn, educate yourself, because it took me that journey to get to the point where I don't go to anybody now. I don't go to any naturopath or homeopath. Okay, a lot of it has to do with finances, but still, I manage myself now through the things that I've learned along the way, and that's made a huge difference. So just be aware that this is going to be maybe a slow process for you in the beginning, because you've got to build up that body health and build up the various systems to be able to start seeing the bigger improvements. So consider that if this is something that you wish to embark on and go a different route, because the side effects are very almost nothing. There are side effects, there are certain side effects, but the side effects will be like, I'll give you an example. There are many natural medications that are there to detox the body. Okay. Now, what I personally found was that when you go into a detox, because the elimination system is compromised, the very first place that the detox would go to would be my skin. It would want to push out all those toxins that are sitting there in the body and have been sitting there in the bowels. It wouldn't use that route. It would use my skin. So infections did get worse. It kept pushing out through my skin. And again, took a lot of trial and error. And when I say pushing out, it didn't stop. I mean, there was one particular medication that I took some time, many years ago. And for 3 months, it just constant pushing out. And I was miserable because I was in more pain than what I was before. And it detoxed me really well, but it just never seemed to come to an end. So after 3 months, I stopped. And many of these medications do this, because with EB, the skin is the weakest point. So that's invariably the road or the channel in which it's going to choose to eliminate these things. So these are a couple of the things that you need to be aware of. And I will be sharing a lot more of specific remedies and medicines that have helped me, that don't push out through the skin. And I'll be very excited to share some of those with you. They are my go-to places, but seriously, manage your expectations, have a bit of patience in the beginning. Your health absolutely will improve, and so will your vibrancy. The quality of your life, my life, has improved dramatically. So, something for you to think about. I'll see you again next time.